Hey, Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more relationship stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from Excellent Plastic 37 and says, "My ex-fiance, male 44, cheated on me 20 years ago. Should I, female 44, go out to dinner with him to catch up?" So apologies if this is a long one. I've just been kind of mulling it over with pros and cons. Burner account for obvious reasons since my main is my business account. A little bit of backstory. When I first met Mark, oh my word, fake name, it was back in junior year of high school. My parents had a pretty bad divorce. Mother had an affair and essentially abandoned me. So my father packed up and I moved to a new state to live with him. I'm extremely close with my father because of this, and we had a close bond. Anyway, this was a lot. I was struggling to deal with everything emotionally and I withdrew a lot. My grades got bad and I acted out. Mark was someone I became acquainted to very quickly. Think troublemaker / bully type deal. Anyway, I avoided him like the plague, but I was new, I was small, so easy pickings. He cornered me one time, calling me names, and I'm not sure what the trigger was, just a lot of built up emotions, but I punched him, which led to a fight. A one-sided one looking back. He was much larger than me, but never swung back. After this, he did an entire 180 on his personality. He stopped bullying others, apologized, left me love letters, followed me everywhere, until I just snapped and asked what his deal was. I still get butterflies when I think back on it. Embarrassing, I know, but it makes me feel like a kid again. But he told me that he wanted to be a better person for me, and that he liked me. This kind of just started something between us. I started helping him study. I got a close friend who I could talk to. We hung out whenever we could, and we eventually started dating. This man's grades went from D's and C's to A's. He worked so hard just to apply for the same college as me and to follow me. Well, this led to an amazing couple of years. I can't even describe how happy he made me. He was sweet, caring, kind. He always bought me flowers. Everything you could ever want in a man, basically. During college, we got an apartment together and shortly after got engaged. Life felt perfect. I had a decent job. I considered him the love of my life. We started having hiccups. Nothing major, some small fights here and there. Some money issues, some jealousy issues. Again, nothing we couldn't work through. But the conversations and fights kept repeating, and they spiraled because we were both young and immature. We started having real-world problems. Just before this, we started trying for a baby, which spiraled everything further because we had fertility issues. Something that really pushed everything to its limit was when he couldn't get a job after college. We were struggling financially, and I was the main one providing. It stressed him out and brought up a lot of insecurity issues for him because I was doing what he felt was his job. Different time, I guess. Some info. His parents are ridiculously wealthy. His father owns a construction company and he's never had to struggle for things before. When he moved out, he was determined to make it on his own, despite his father offering him a job at his company. This is something that caused further arguments because I was upset that he was so prideful that he'd rather suffer than work for his dad. While he was upset that I wasn't supportive of his decision because he didn't get along with his dad at the time. It all came to a head when he had a pretty explosive argument. I went to stay with my dad after packing my bags, got cold feet after a day and missed him. Came home to him shirtless, hugging a woman on our couch. The blow up is, as you can imagine. I cried and yelled at him. He kept saying, "Please, it's not what it looks like." But when I asked for more information, he'd just stutter and couldn't elaborate. I called off the engagement, moved back to my father's place and cut contact. He reached out a couple of times, apologizing for cheating on me and begging for another chance, but I just physically couldn't. After what I saw my father go through, cheating was a hard boundary, and I nursed my hurt feelings for a couple of months. It got too much for me one time when he sent me a letter, and I just couldn't bring myself to read it. So I got my job to transfer me out of state and I moved. Made my dad promise not to tell Mark where I was and moved on with my life. Well, that's basically it. Ended up marrying my ex-husband when I was 34. We got divorced when I was 39 because he was having an affair with his co-worker. I have many colourful words for this man, and he left me when she got pregnant. They're married now and very unhappy. Baby wasn't even his, so I guess small victories. Anyway, my life has improved a lot since me and Mark split. I genuinely believe what happened was for the best, although I wish it ended on good terms. We were both young and needed to grow as individuals. I went back to college for a culinary degree, started my own catering company, and I'm now very happy with my life and my cats. My original degree was in accounting, and I realized how much I hated it shortly after I left my new job. So I was back in my original state for a wedding I was hired to cater for. This specific day, yesterday, was a vacation day, so I told my team just to go and have fun. They went out for drinks, and I opted out and decided to walk down memory lane a little bit. I was walking when I heard someone shout my name, followed by some loud car honks. I turn around and I see a man running up to me, and it takes me a few seconds to process who it is. He's aged a bit, and he was very clearly out of breath. Honestly, it felt like I was back in school with him. My heart fluttered and his ears did this thing they always do when they turn red, and he was talking to me. I mean, it's winter, so it's cold as shit too. And I just couldn't stop staring at him. He asked the pleasantries, how I was doing, you look good, I've missed you, all that jazz. We talked for a bit longer and he asked me if I was married. I explained that I was divorced and asked him the same question. He said that he never married and has been single for a long time. I asked how things have been in general and he explained that he now runs his father's construction company. I was happy for him, gave him my congratulations, and then he asked me out for dinner to catch up. I said yes, because truthfully, I'd like to know what has happened in his life since I left. We exchanged numbers and had a hug goodbye. I can't even explain how much I missed hugging him. Everything just felt perfect. So, why am I on here for advice, when I so clearly want to meet him for dinner? Well, I talked to some of my girlfriends and they were appalled that I'd even consider seeing an ex who cheated. It's just dinner, so I don't think it's a big deal. But they were adamant that it was a bad idea, and it started to make me think. Also, I kind of want to go so we could talk about what happened back then. We never really sat down and talked about his infidelity, and I can't lie that I'm a bit curious. Besides that, it's been 20-ish years and I've moved on. I've lived my life and I'm happy. He was someone I cared about deeply, and it'd be nice to have him back in my life. As a friend, I'm not expecting anything. So, advice. Surely it won't be a big deal if I go, right? Now, I think this is like a very, very personal choice. For me, I'd be interested in attending and catching up and all that sort of thing, just to get information, to get closure if you like, if that's what you need, of course. But I think for me, and very much for me, I think I would attend. Could I see myself ever getting back with someone who cheated, especially in the way that it all happened? I don't think I could. Can people change within 20 years? Of course they can. I'd imagine the OP and this guy are both very different people now, but in my mind, and again, this is very much a me thing, I think it would always be in my head, like if things go wrong in life, say if they was to get together, if things did go wrong in life and things started getting harder, like life always throws spanners in the works, right? You say his construction company starts going down the pan, will he go back to old behaviors? And maybe that's unfair to say. It's been 20 years, he may have changed, etc. But it's certainly something that would be in my mind. So a me problem, if you like. And like you said, you're going into it not expecting anything. You don't think it's a big deal yourself. I don't think it's a big deal. Meeting up with someone that you've known in the past, that you've got history with and you're curious about, I don't think there's much wrong meeting for dinner and talking. But I think I would just leave it with saying just be careful. But Tiny AFP says go and enjoy your night. Life's too short for what ifs. I'm not saying you need to date the guy because clearly that's not the intention. But hearing him out after all these years might help you mend the relationship and get the friend you lost back. Good luck. Opie says you're right. I don't want to live in regret over not reconnecting with him. I feel like I'll kick myself if I let this pass, so I'll message him. I think I just needed some confirmation that it was a good idea. King Sim says in a cute way, Destiny brought you back together. You wanted to go down memory lane and it ended up bringing you back to him. Even the physical attention between you was there. It was 20 years ago and you clearly have forgiven him for his past after your ex-husband turned out to be bad as well. He's not the same man that he was. If he is truly honest and never got with someone else via marriage because he could never find someone like you, and just rekindle your time together. If he fixed all his flaws you had with him that caused those arguments, then besides the cheating event, then just enjoy his company. If you want to become more than friends, then you know each other well enough to rekindle it. You will get closure on your chapter to start a new one. You owe it to yourself to get closure on this regardless of what your girlfriends say. Prof Plumdid, it says, your girlfriends need to hush. 24 and 44 are completely different people. First of all, he isn't the same man he was and you aren't the same woman. It will hurt nothing and no one to eat a meal together and catch up. Doing so doesn't obligate you to date him or see him again or even forgive him. On the other hand, if you do choose to do any or all of those things, there's nothing wrong or bad about that as long as you feel like he's learned from his fuck-ups and wouldn't repeat them. If you don't go, you'll always wonder what if. If you do go, you might gain a friend or at least closure. Jin says, personally, I think leave the past in the past. What did OP do? Do you think they went to dinner with her ex-fiance or not? Let's find out in OP's update that says, hi, I'm back after our dinner. A lot of people ask for an update which I'm quite flattered about. I didn't think my dilemma was that important, but I'm back. Short story, dinner was great, it was amazing to talk to him again, and even though we touched on emotional topics, it felt good being able to show that emotional connection we shared. Long story, we talked about a lot of things. Neither of us really wanted it to end, I didn't think. This man, he remembered the restaurant we had our first date at and took me there. The restaurant no longer exists, but the building still does, and it's a different chain now. The food left much to be desired, but it felt like a blast from the past, and it was so heartwarming. A bit of backstory. On our first date as semi-adults, he came dressed in a suit, despite the restaurant being low-key, slicked back hair and some flowers. I remember how much we laughed because I was just wearing casual clothes and we looked like completely different vibes. Well, he showed up today in another suit with slick back hair, that is way out of style, and flowers, just like back then. I felt all warm and I teased him for going back to the past. I made a comment about how he was missing his earring. He had a horrendous dangle earring back in the day because it was cool, and he smiled and took it out of his pocket. He couldn't put it on because his ear has since closed up, but he brought it because he wanted to complete the look, so just held it. We went through some small talk, how life had been, any major events. I was sad to hear that his father had passed away in 2015. Wasn't exactly close with him, but it was still disheartening. They repaired their relationship before he passed, which is good at least. I asked about any partners, kind of nosy, how come you never married, and we kind of went on to a more emotional side of things. He said that he tried, that he dated after we split, but it never worked out long enough to be long term. He said that he had been single for a couple of years now and was just content on remaining like that as he didn't think he'd find someone he'd connect to like he did with me. Smooth talker. He asked me about my marriage, the gory details. I didn't mind telling him since I find the whole thing a learning experience now. He was sympathetic, then laughed when I joked about it, so I'm sure he knows I'm not hung up on it. I used this to kind of propel myself into what I wanted to ask, and that was about what happened back then. He smiled and said that he had been waiting to talk about it, and that he was happy to finally air it all out. In basic terms, after our argument that day, everything felt like too much. The pretty standard issues that I had already known about. He was embarrassed, felt like a failure, and was too prideful to talk about it with me. So resentments built up and he went out to drink. That's where he met the lovely lady. They talked for a bit and flirted, which led him to drunkenly bringing her home. He got a bit shy saying this part, but I guess it's just because he's embarrassed. Anyway, they were making out as they got in. She had started unbuttoning his shirt when he saw a picture of us together next to the couch. It was a trip we took to Seattle and it was hell. Like no exaggeration, everything that went wrong could have, but a story for another time. Anyway, he said that when he saw me, he was just hit with this massive sober moment and he pulled away. He confessed that he had a fiance and that he was just going through it. He ended up opening up and venting to her and crying, which is when I walked in and saw them embracing. Honestly, it could be a lie. It could very well be some long-term trickle-truthing, but I just don't see the reason. Even if he was having an entire affair, I've gotten over it now, so it wouldn't have made much difference. But at least I know who she is now, because admittedly, it had been bugging me that I didn't recognize her at all. He apologized again. He said that he should have told me the full truth back then, instead of hiding it. That in his opinion, his infidelity more than just a kiss because he had the intention of doing it when he met her at the bar. So he couldn't blame it on a drunken decision because he had plenty of time between the flirting and bringing her home. He said that also felt, despite how it ended, it was ultimately the best outcome for the relationship at the time because he needed to grow as a person, and that he was too ashamed to let me see him during that time. The time after when he tried to win me back, he was still in the I don't need change phase and kept sending letters. Once my father told him I left to another state, this was when he got into drinking heavily. I got a bit emotional as he was talking about this because it hurt to hear the state he was in while I left. His voice started breaking, so I held his hand and we had a little moment. I screamed when I got to my hotel room and I encouraged him to talk, so he let it out. It took about 1.5 years for him to snap out of his drinking funk and get better. He sobered up, started working for his dad and made his way up. I'm honestly so proud of him in a weird way. I know I don't really have a right to, but I don't know. Something about hearing how much he changed to better himself for him made me really happy. We took a dodge from the sappy subjects, we ate our food and talked. I can't even describe how good it felt. I was worried that it might be a bit awkward, but our conversation flowed so easily. It was like we never really parted. We made jokes, he still has this goofy grin whenever he's about to tell me a stupid joke, and it made my heart race slightly when I saw it. All in all, we had a good time. He drove me back to my hotel. He asked how long I was staying and I said a week. He asked if we could plan something else and I said of course. He got a bit blushy, red-tipped ears, and he asked if I would be willing to forgive him after all this time and possibly see if we could try again. I said that I forgave him a long time ago, and I wouldn't be against starting something again, but that would need to go slow because of our history. He got that goofy grin again and smiled. He held my hand and asked for a kiss, and I said yes. So much for going slow. I don't want to be over dramatic, but Jesus, we both had to take a minute to calm down after. It's like all of our emotions from the past just bottled out. So that's basically it. He waved me goodbye and we messaged once he got home. We phoned for a bit before bed and he gushed over how nice the day was. I'm doing my skincare now, but I had to come post this before bed. I took a lot of what you all said to heart, and you are right. Life is too short for what ifs. I don't want to regret not taking this chance, so I'm going to go for it. Thank you for all the comments. I'm not sure if there's a need to update after this, but if there is for whatever reason, then I will. I probably missed some things from what happened, but if I remember, I'll edit. Anyway, good night. There was a couple of comments which OP replies to on this one. So Ill Conversation says there is absolutely a need to update after this. I want every single detail. Pretend I'm your best friend. Tell me everything about what happens next. And OP says, lol, should I? We went out for coffee this morning and he gave me a tour of his office. He's grown up so much. I remember when he used to complain about having to wear suits and work in an enclosed space, but he looks so smart now. I'll spill some details if anything more happens. And one more comment from Poku who says, well, I wouldn't be able to get over the fact he was completely willing to cheat, and if they had gone to a house or a motel, they would have effectively done it. But I guess people change and deserve second chances. Just please be wary. OP says, oh, I completely understand that. I know if things had been differently, went anywhere but our place, he would have fully gone through with it. But to me, it doesn't matter because it held the same weight in my eyes. Him just kissing her versus them sleeping together would be the same to me. Again, even if he had an affair for months, I'm at a stage in my life where I've moved on from what happened. I'm a different person, and I don't hold it to him anymore. But I appreciate the concern, and I will definitely be wary. Which Poker replies and says, let's just hope for the best then. And I know you say you forgive him, but let's hope he repays all the hurt by making you the happiest you can be. And I was like, oh, yeah. That comment as well, it jumped out to me. It was like, yeah, anywhere else, and they may have fully gone through with it, even though OP says, you know, it wouldn't really bother them. It's the same as kissing, etc., etc. And I don't want to be Mr. Killjoy on this because it's a lovely post. The way OP writes is lovely, and, you know, they sound like an absolute wonderful person who's been through a lot and deserves happiness. But there was a little part of me, and there'd be maybe an arse of me thinking this, is that, you know, he came into this thinking it was a date, turned up, took her to the same building that they first dated in, dressed up like he used to. It just always felt like he expected more from it. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that put me on edge ever so slightly. And like I said before, can people change in 20 years? Of course, people change in 20 years. Would I personally be able to move past it? I'm not so sure. I've never been in a situation like that before, but I just feel for myself, personally, I would struggle with it. But I know myself, I'm an overthinker, so I know there'll be all sorts of opinions on this one. So I'm very interested to know what you're going to say about it and how you would maybe deal with this situation. But whatever happens, I truly wish OP all the best going forward. I hope things do work out for them. And I hope that, you know, they're just living their best life. Like they said, life is too short. So I truly hope that they get the best out of it. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I will certainly look out for updates if OP does kindly update us again. Love to hear it, of course. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved. Truly, it's amazing. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.